the stress of exams, or just to acclimate, to hang out with some friends. We throw a big festival every May through the organization called Mayfest. The festival itself is called Dillo Day, and that's something that's completely student organized and run, and it's a big party on our campus. Our president likes to say it's the only day of the year that he actually tries to close down the libraries because he wants you out there socializing and having fun. So I think that's one piece that's reflective of our student body as well. What you can see in the distance there is the city of Chicago, but before you get to the city of Chicago is Evanston. So outside of our campus kind of walls, it's not walled in, but when you know when you're on campus and when you're off, is Evanston. And Evanston is what we like to say, just outside the city. So it's the first town outside the city of Chicago. The border of the city of Chicago is about 5 minutes from campus. And Evanston is really your college town. There's a lot of ways that we incorporate working with the Evanston community. Our students volunteer in all the different school systems. Our engineers redesigned one of the fire trucks in order to be a playground on our campus. I'm sorry, in the Evanston community. So there's a lot of ways that we combine forces with the city of Evanston, and it gives our students kind of that unique college town experience, and all the people in Evanston are really supportive of the Northwestern experience and community. They're really passionate about what happens at Northwestern. So it's a special place in Evanston too. It gives you that enclosed campus feeling, but also that town of Evanston is kind of that college town experience, while also being attached or just in your backyard is the city of Chicago. And the city of Chicago is an international city. We're the third largest city in the United States, second only to New York for the most Fortune 500 companies in one location, which gives you unprecedented access to things like internships and research and networks and mentors. And we harness a lot of those experiences through a program called Chicago Field Studies. That's just one example of how we do that. Chicago Field Studies is an opportunity for you to do an internship during the academic school year, not just waiting until the summer. So you can do it both and it gives you an experience in the workforce for 4 days a week and back on campus for that 5th day of the week, and gives you some academic credit. So it's really cool. You get to combine thinking with students that are all over the city in different placements as well. We're considered an economic epicenter where bold ideas are considered the norm. We're in the Midwest, which we like to say is a little bit more balanced and kind of the heartland of the United States, and not too fast-paced like the East Coast and not too laid back like the West Coast. We like to say we're kind of that middle point, right, in the United States. So Chicago has a lot of city pride. We have the Bears, the Bulls, the Blackhawks, the Cubs, and the Sox. And even if those things mean nothing to you, they're all professional sports teams. We also have the Chicago Fire, our soccer team. So there's a lot of different just energy about the city of Chicago. Lollapalooza is hosted in Chicago, and it's this weekend actually. So big, huge festival. It's 4 days long in Chicago. So we have a lot of fun, and the entire city is bordered by Lake Michigan. So again, it has that kind of reprieve as well, that beauty of the environment as well. We have 2 major international airports to get you really anywhere in the world very efficiently. We're really lucky to have that. And the United States is really a big connecting point for anywhere in the US. And then we also have 2 major public transportation systems in the city of Chicago. We have the L, which is what we affectionately call the L for the elevated train. It's mostly above ground, and the Metra, which is places from the city to further out. But since we're kind of situated in between the suburbs and the city, we are on both lines. So it really benefits our students to kind of get around. We also have a Northwestern shuttle that takes you back and forth, because we do have our campuses in the loop right in the center of the city that are mostly housed for our med school, our law school, as well as other research centers that you can be taking part in as undergraduate students. So that's a big overview of our location, but we really take our location pretty seriously, because I kind of call it the trifecta: the international city, the college town, and that home campus feel. There's very few universities that have those 3 environments all in one, so all within your fingertips. And so I really do think that's something that differentiates us from our peers when you're looking at universities. The next thing that we want to talk about and really highlight as differentiating us from our peers is our 6-school structure. So we have 6 different colleges and schools that we welcome you to study at Northwestern. And when I say welcome you to study, when you apply, we want to know which one is most interesting to you when you're kind of filling out that application, maybe what you did in high school that you really think you're good at, or that you think you want to enter into at Northwestern. But the beauty of the US education system is this kind of concept of liberal arts and studies, right? And so once you're admitted to Northwestern, you are welcome to take classes or double major or change your mind and go into any of these 6 colleges and schools. So I know that's a little bit different for international students to envision, because some systems and country university systems are organized around like tracking students in, or you have to pick one thing and stick to it. At Northwestern, this is really a flexible learning environment, and perhaps even more so than a lot of our peers. So you're going to see that at a lot of universities in the United States, but to the level that we do it at Northwestern is exemplified a little bit more. And I'm going to talk more about that. But just on the highest level, our 6 colleges and school structure, the largest is our Feinberg College of Arts and Science. It has the most majors in it in terms of the list of majors. The most students concentrated in one area at Northwestern is economics. So it's a really popular field at Northwestern, which is what Malcolm's coming for. But economics is one of about 8 to 10 ways to study business at Northwestern, and that's actually housed in 4 of the different schools. And so we like to talk about roads to business. We don't just have one business major where you kind of check off 30 courses and you're a business person. We want to know what about business is inspiring to you, and kind of what level of what part of your brain and engagement and different fields. So we think that plays out in a lot of different ways before you were to go on to do your MBA, perhaps in graduate school. We also have a lot of different sciences, and we coalesced a lot of them into an honors program called ISP, Integrated Science Program. So you don't have to just pick one of them, but we have a lot of different offerings of the hard sciences, the social sciences, language studies. We even have a very specialized program called creative writing that have produced writers like Veronica Roth, who wrote the book Divergent in her senior year. So that's a special little niche to talk about as well. One of those business majors is actually housed within our School of Education and Social Policy. Our School of Education and Social Policy program that relates to business would be learning and organizational change. It's kind of the macro level of business and how different structures are in place and systems are in place. The top a career out of LOC is consulting at some of the top firms in the city of Chicago and the world. But we also have programs that will get you certified in secondary education, early education. Also, learning sciences is a really cool one that kind of is fusing technology and learning and developing different curriculum and strategies and devices. So that's kind of interesting. We're the only school in the top 10 universities in the United States that have an undergraduate college completely devoted to School of Communication, or I'm sorry, the journalism, the Medill School of Journalism. We're the only school that has one at the undergraduate level. A lot of our students from across the university in all different disciplines tap into some of the expertise in Medill through the Integrated Marketing Communication Certificate. And that's a series of 4 or 5 courses that you can take for that. And it really relates to a lot of different fields at Northwestern and going out into the world. We're one of only 2 schools in the top 10 universities in the United States that have a School of Communication at the undergraduate level. And that's completely devoted to communication, really giving you a lot of autonomy over that and the faculty and professors. Anything from radio, television, and film to theater to dance, all the way over to human communication sciences and disorders. And that allows students to kind of examine science from a different lens. We founded fields like pathology and audiology at Northwestern. Our engineering program is one of the most unique in the country. And the reason why we say that, which is a pretty bold statement, I realize that's pretty bold to say that we're one of the most unique, is because we have 13 different disciplines of engineering. One that's called MADE, it's materials and design engineering. It's very unique, it doesn't exist very many places, but also because of the overall kind of ethos of our engineering school is what we call whole brain engineering. Whole brain engineering is a copyrighted term at Northwestern, and it's reflected in our curriculum that's housed in your first year called Engineering First. And we have a special course called Design Thinking and Communication. And so whole brain engineering is really getting you not just in the left brain frame of thinking, like math and science that you're inherently good at if you're destined to be an engineer, but we really want those students to put all of those skills into like the right brain level of thinking too. So creativity, design, collaboration. So our program is very hands-on. In the first year, you have real life clients that you're out there working with. So if you're at all interested in engineering, check out Whole Brain Engineering and DTC, our Design Thinking and Communication. Finally, our Beaton School of Music is a top tier, high caliber, hands-on, like hand-selected faculty from around the globe in our disciplines of music, but it's not conservatory in the traditional sense. So we call ourselves conservatory style, which means that you're able to study other things at Northwestern as well as music. So it's not just keeping our musicians as musicians, but letting you also explore to different majors and minors and things like that. And you're going to hear that theme a lot of the average student, about 80% of students at Northwestern study multiple concentrations. And a concentration can be a major, a minor, or a certificate. And how we do that is utilizing our quarter system. So our quarter system is a little bit different than other institutions in that we have 4 academic quarters a year. I will confuse you a little bit further by saying that most students only take 3 of those, right? The 4th is in the summer and it's largely optional. But it means that you're going to take courses in about 8 to 10, about 10 weeks is one course. And over the time of your 4 years at Northwestern, compared to a semester system, you're going to take 8 to 10 more courses than you would in a semester system by using the quarter system. You might think I'm a little bit crazy asking you to be excited about taking 8 to 10 more courses than some of your peers at semester-based systems, but I promise you there's a real reason and rationale behind it. It means that you get to diversify your thinking. You can change your mind if you're in a major that isn't rightly suited for you and you're not wasting any time. You won't be graduating late. You can pick up a second area of major, or minor, or certificate because you just kind of started taking a class and you just discovered a new appreciation for it. So Malcolm and I were talking about how he's coming for economics. He has this kind of interest in intrigue and history, but he didn't really get to take it in secondary school. So he'll be able to explore that at Northwestern in whatever part he wants, whether a major, a minor, or a certificate. We also have some honors programs in history as well. So the quarter system is really quite beautiful because it gives you that space to change your mind, to be inspired by other areas. There's professors on campus that are just famous for the topic that they're teaching that might not relate to your major at all. We have a course about marriage 101, which is not necessarily just about marriage, but it's about relationships and kind of crafting you to be a better partner in relationships someday. We also have Russian literature, which is actually one of the most popular classes on campus because of the professor that teaches them. He basically wrote the books on the books that you study. So it's incredibly famous. We have behavioral economics that's taught by our president. That's really, really exciting course. And he tag teams teaches that with another famous professor on campus. So there might be a course you just want to take for fun. I like to tell the story of Haley. She's one of our, and I could really use a lot of different students to describe this kind of phenomenon at Northwestern, but she came in as pre-med biology and then discovered that there's other fields like biomedical engineering. Another one that students that are pre-med are really interested in is neuroscience. That's really booming. But she did biomedical engineering because she kind of discovered it in university. She didn't know it existed. She started working with medical devices at our Feinberg School of Medicine in her first year in some of the labs there. And then she took a class just for fun because there was a new department that was founded and a new minor in Middle East and North Africa studies. And there was a really famous professor that we recruited to found that department. And she just loved that professor so much. She ended up doing a minor in Middle East and North Africa studies. And then she also combined those two with a global health technologies certificate. And that allowed her to go to South Africa for a study abroad experience as part of that too. So again, you don't have to come with all of these ideas and don't feel overwhelmed, but about 80% of our students do multiple concentrations, and some of them just discover it because of one class or one professor. And so those 8 to 10 additional courses really come to fruition in a lot of different ways. Certificates are anywhere from 4 to 6 courses. And they can be in things like civic engagement, entrepreneurship, design certificate. We have 2 certificates from our Kellogg School of Management, a top 5 MBA program in the world that's available at the undergraduate level. And then we have a lot of different offerings as well for certificates. Minors are anywhere from 7 to 10 courses, so a little bit more of a commitment. And then majors are anywhere from 11 to 17, depending on which area it's in and if you're overlapping majors. So here's a little overview of what I've kind of already unpacked for you. We also have a lot of very small class sizes. So you're going to have about 20 students in most of your classes. There's only 3% of our classes that have over 100 students, and those professors are like very specifically designed and trained to be in those. Any course over 20 students, you're also going to have a TA, a teaching assistant. That's not your primary instructor. They're just an additional resource. But you can see there's a lot of different combinations you can have. But I think I'm running a little short on time this time, so I'm going to keep going. We have a lot of learning that happens outside the classroom, and we want that for you. This is another way that Northwestern sets themselves apart from some of our peer institutions, is we funnel so much funding and resources. Our entire community is really focused on this. We are a top research university as well as a top kind of arts environment too. So we do both and so it means that we're going to foster that type of learning outside the classroom for any student. So we have $3.5 million just for undergraduate students. And about 5 years ago, we benchmarked that amount for undergrads, because when people talk about research funding, a lot of it is related to graduate work. So people that are seeking higher degrees in a master's or a PhD. At Northwestern, we wanted our students at an earlier age, in first and second year, to be exposed to that research process, so they would be better equipped to either pursue graduate studies or PhDs, or just know which path they wanted to go on. And so we really started targeting first and second year students, and we have grants anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 set up for students to work with faculty, to work on their own. You can pitch your own research experience or idea. We have some really dynamic marketing in our undergraduate research office. There's kind of like a comic book strip is how they kind of highlight the programs. I don't know, just check it out and see if you're interested. We have 90 different school-based research centers. So again, all of this is to complement your learning outside the classroom. We're a top sending school for Fulbright, Gates, Cambridge, Teach for America, Marshall Scholars, all of those things. So we have a lot of students going out into the world making impact. And we have a ton of study abroad programs of all different variations too. So short-term, long-term. One of our students that I like to talk about, Hanson, he was admitted to the London School of Economics as well as Northwestern, didn't know which one to pick, ultimately chose Northwestern, but then he did an entire year studying abroad at London School of Economics. So it worked out for him in that way, but we have summers, we have some time over the breaks too. One of those centers that we like to talk about is kind of encompasses a lot of what the university believes in is innovation, right? And the center that highlights that, I think, is part of the ecosystem of this innovation and entrepreneurship, because we have the Farley Center for Entrepreneurship, we have Design for America, we have the Design Thinking and Communication Lab, but we also have the Garage. And the Garage is not a dingy place you park your car. It's actually an incubator for startup companies. It has these big garage doors that open and shut for some of the creative and maker spaces. You can incubate in the Garage as a fully kind of thought out and structured proposed business, or you can come and just be interested in entrepreneurship and want to get involved in startups, and you can kind of do what I like to call speed dating for startups. So you can get involved with somebody else's idea as you start to formulate yours or refine yours. And so the Garage is a tremendous resource. Go ahead and check it out. There's some tours online. We really set ourselves apart because of the way we make it student-led. All the ideas are student-driven, not from like a big funded company that's driving our organization. And all the intellectual capital remains the students. So it's really special. And there's some that are all different sectors. So anything from medical devices to social and entrepreneurship, social and environmental efforts, things like that. So check out the Garage as well. Also, because of our 6-school structure and all the different places that we have students studying, anything from theater all the way over to neuroscience to English, we have a lot of different people out there in the world to connect you with. And so we call our network, it's a pretty wide variety of professionals for you to get involved in. This past year, Gwen Shotwell gave our commencement speech, and of course she heads up SpaceX and has some really amazing notoriety there. She started being involved with a program called Propel, which is for female entrepreneurs in our garage. So we connect a lot with our alumni as well in a lot of different ways, and it just creates a pretty impressive range of people to connect you with out there in the world. And so you can look at some of their profiles through the Northwestern Career Advancement Center and our Northwestern Alumni Network too. Here's some of those organizations that we partner with for Chicago Field Studies, as I mentioned earlier, those internships. And this is just a scattering of a few names. There's hundreds online. We even have some built into your program. So like the Medill program does, our journalism program does a required internship. And you can literally go to about 120 different sites and just pick which one you want to go to, and you're off to New York or San Francisco. We have a space in San Francisco called the San Francisco campus. It's right on the ocean. We have some space in DC for Medill on the Hill. We have a campus in Qatar as well called NUQ. So there's lots of different resources throughout too that are not on campus. I want to tie things up a little bit with some of our student life. We have an incredibly engaging student life experience. We want you to have a lot of fun outside the classroom. That's what university is about. So you can go home and tell your parents that there's an admission officer out there that actually told you that you're supposed to be focused on having fun too, right? So we work hard and play hard is what we like to say. Our students say that very casually, but they mean it. We have 100 different culturally focused groups. We have student groups that are politically focused, philanthropic. We have 14 different publications on our campus. So you can write for Spoon, the foodie magazine, or Stitch, the fashion magazine. Our a cappella groups are pretty amazing. We founded one a few years ago that's focused more on hip hop, and they actually perform for Barack Obama in the White House, kind of cool. We have 90 theater productions each year. So that's at least one a weekend. So we have just as much school spirit and like contagious purple pride around our theater and art students as we do around our athletics. We do compete at the highest level of athletics in the United States. So that's the NCAA Division I. A lot of our programs are nationally televised. So it's kind of cool to see some of your classmates on television, but also it brings this energy to campus. Even if you're not an athletic fan, you can be, exposed to your first American football game. That we have the head coach actually speak to our international students and kind of give you the rundown of the game. If that's not your thing, you can kind of get just into the environment as well. Some of our faculty members actually have tailgates for their students and really kind of personal approaches there. So it's just an engaging environment, and we have a lot of what we call purple pride. So this is something we want you to do. We want you to have fun while you're in university and bond and connect with some of your students. So finally, this is the piece about kind of all the ways to connect with us after today. And so we have a lot of different social media channels. As I said before, there's been a lot of this last year that's incredibly hard and challenging, but one of the silver linings that I like to say is that it's given us different ways to connect with students virtually. And there's a lot of students that have never been to campus that are going to be joining us very soon. And there's a lot of ways that we're trying to show you the authentic student experience too. So we have longer information sessions, kind of like this one, but with students. We have international student panels. We have panels that are focusing on health professions or STEM tours or performance studies, things like that. So you can check out a lot of different things, and you can actually kind of fast forward through the things that aren't very interesting and the really soak up the ones that are, because I know you're probably YouTubed out at this point, but we're really trying to give you some tangible ways. We also have some short videos, so like NU and 2, it's 2-minute videos highlighting a lot of different aspects of Northwestern life. So we've really tried to put things out there that didn't exist before, and I think that's a unique thing that you all are going to get, even amid all of what you've gone through over the last several years. several years now with the pandemic, and just doing your research in a more creative way for university. So just know that we're alongside you. We also have the global Wildcats, who are current international students that are looking to answer your questions just about how it's like to apply, how to get exposed to campus, if you want to connect with a current international student based on major, country, citizenship, identity, anything. So we're happy to do that too. And then these are my self-made, very quickly thrown together slides that are obviously not up to our marketing and communication standards. But here's a bit about our holistic review process. I'm happy to go into depth on any of these things. I travel internationally with a lot of different peer institutions. So it tends to be myself and 4 to 5 different colleagues from other universities. And we talk about this a lot. So please let me know if you want me to go into depth on any of these, but I don't want to reiterate things you've already heard. For Northwestern specifically, I will highlight that we are test optional for next year, and we really mean optional. So when I say test optional, it means optional. And so I just want you to reiterate that, kind of let that soak in. There's so many reasons why students may or may not take the exam or have access or not have access to the exam. So please just know that we've learned a lot from this last year. It went really well at Northwestern, and we've always been very holistic in our review. So we always say your academic record, your subjects and your grades, your types of curriculum is first and foremost the most important to us, even before pandemic time, right? So we've always recognized that there's different access to exams and SAT and ACT. We've never required, actually the last 10 years or so, we haven't required SAT subject tests. So even though those aren't a thing anymore, we've stepped away from those a long time ago. English proficiency, if you have not attended a high school that's primarily instructed in English for all 4 years, then we would like to see an English proficiency exam, especially if your first language was not English, as far as your native speaking language. But we see students coming from so many different environments, and there's a lot of reasons why you may or may not take that exam. But just know we don't want to create an obstacle for you. So we don't want you to be required to take it if you don't have to. And we accept the Duolingo exam, TOEFL, and IELTS. So let us know if you have questions about that in the chat. The other thing, essays for Northwestern. We have a supplement to the common application at Northwestern. And that means that we do ask you to fill out an additional essay. And that means a lot to us. So I'm going to switch to the slide again. I apologize for not putting very much effort into the making it purple or anything. But the supplement to the Common App is incredibly important to us. It's going to tell us, your essay question is going to answer why Northwestern. And why that's important to us is because we are just as much interested in why you want to be at Northwestern and what you will add to our community and environment, and what about your research for universities has helped us stand out. Like, why did we make your list, right? So don't misunderstand the application process as like reciting facts or just trying to get into as many universities. That's absolutely not what it's about. It's this caliber, highly selective admission is something that we really want you to be intentional about. So I told the last group that we don't want students that are applying to all 20 of the top 20 institutions to come through our pool. That's not gonna make you stand out, right? The Why Northwestern statement is gonna go beyond just telling me that we have whole brain engineering as our engineering kind of modality, but what does that mean to you? Like, what about whole brain engineering connects with you and like it makes you the type of engineer you want to be versus other options that you've had? Or what about any of our programs is inspiring to you and a unique fit? So basically, why do you want to spend 4 years of your life at our school, right? At our institution? And what about it is inspiring to you? And what do you offer to your other students or your professors that will make them inspired by you? And so really, please view the application process as kind of that nuanced, because it is. And so some of the other things that are on this page really quickly is just, we do a lot of shared presentations. So we normally have this about many schools on one slide. So I just pulled this out for us. We accept the common application, the coalition application. We really don't care which one you fill out. And the difference in our decision deadlines is that we have an early decision process and a regular decision process. So early decision, it gives you kind of the dates there. You apply early November and you hear back mid-December. It means that you're applying earlier in the calendar year, but you're also saying that Northwestern stands out. It means that we have earned the top slot on your list because we have a binding program for early. There are a lot of schools that have early action or early decision or early decision 2. Basically, with early decision, you're in this great program where you are getting mentorship, you're doing these college fairs, you're doing so much programming to do your research on universities. So if there's a school that earns that #1 spot on your list, there's a really great advantage at a lot of schools to do that early program. At Northwestern, I can tell you it is a higher admission rate for our early decision applicants because there's less students that apply early decision, right? And so we do take that commitment very strongly if you're ready to make it. We let you know mid-December and we'll admit, deny, or defer. If you're deferred, we put you into the review of all the other regular decision applications and you're released from that binding commitment of the early decision application. And we do have a higher admission rate for the early decision students, so we're also deferred. Again, that's a big commitment to make, so just let us know if you have questions or you want to talk to students. For financial aid, we are need-based, which means that the vast majority of our financial aid is allocated based on students' families' backgrounds of how much financial aid you need. And so it's not merit-based, it's not based on a test score, a GPA, any of that. You can receive 100% of your need met, and if your family is able to contribute $0, then we will meet full need, right? So it's a little bit different. We're need blind for US citizens and we're need aware for international citizens. So if you have US citizenship, we don't at all consider how much or if you need financial aid. If you're an international citizen, then you are able to receive financial aid, but you are reviewed at a more competitive rate. We meet 100% of need and we don't use loans either. So there's a couple other resources here on how to connect with us. But I think I'm going to wrap it up there. That's a lot of the information. It's the second time I've said it this morning. So I hope I didn't miss anything. Malcolm, you can call me out if there's anything you want me to talk about or if you have questions, and I'm going to put it back on a prettier slide. But again, I'm here to talk to you. I'm spending my morning with you over here in Chicago. I know it's getting really late there, but don't be afraid. I hope you know that we're really relatable admissions staff. So please ask your questions to Malcolm. He's going to facilitate them. And if there's just anything else about the highly selective admission process you want me to talk about, I'm happy to do so. I'm going to fix my blinds. I have this light happening.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Christy, for the presentation. So guys, now we're going to move on to the question and answer portion of the talk. So we're actually going to extend, we're not going to finish at 11. We'll actually extend to 11:30. So this will actually be the final session with Northwestern here today. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to just unmute yourself and talk, or you can direct message me and I'll put them in the chat for everyone to see. Okay, we've got the first question, Christy.
Okay.
Here.
Okay. So is there a higher chance of getting into Northwestern if I apply ED? This is a bit of a tricky question. I will say, like I said, we take early decision interest very seriously. So it means that you're going to be reviewed amongst a smaller group of applications. So over the course of the year at Northwestern, we receive about 48,000 applications for about 2,000 students that will enter our student body. And so it means that when there's a smaller group applying an early decision, that you do have an increased chance of admission. The trick to that is that we've seen application numbers rising in general. We have admitted about 50% of our incoming first year class through early decision, but we don't want to go much higher than that. So we have deferred more students over the last couple of years too, because we want to see the entire applicant pool before we admit the full class, right? So it's not that your admission rate is 50%, it's just that we're pulling about 50% of our students from the early decision program. So yeah, I mean, yes, if you look at admission rates, it is slightly higher in early decision. It's still very competitive, right? And so we're still looking for students that are very focused and competitive to be able to express that in early decision. So I hope that sums it up a little bit. Again, we have a higher admit rate too for those that we defer from early decision to regular decision at a slightly higher rate than regular decision applicants.
Christy,
well, Malcolm is a regular decision applicant too, so he's
yeah. I also wanted to say actually for that, Christy, do you think also maybe it's kind of self-selecting too? Like it would be like more prepared students would be applying ED. That's why you'd see these higher rates.
Yeah, thank you, Malcolm, for adding that. That's 100% true. So the students that are choosing their number one school to apply early decision, it means that you've done a lot of research in order to select those students. So inherently, the aspects of your application that we are like drawn to or that we want to hone in on are going to be kind of a stronger match, right, for our institution, and your interest in that institution is going to come out a little bit better. So generally speaking, at any institution, if you're able to select an early option, you're probably going to stand out a little bit more than maybe the 8 to 10 schools that are on your list for the regular decision, because it is a lot of work, right? I just want to reiterate and affirm that it's a lot of work to apply to an institution, and it should be, right? It should be. You shouldn't be writing an essay about Northwestern the day before you're applying. It should be an accumulation of some of the things that you've learned over time, and maybe some of how you've refined that over time. So I know that's not the answer you all want, because it means that you have to do a lot more to get there. But yes, it is a self-selecting process. I would say that's right, Malcolm.
Just want to let everyone know. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but you guys don't have to stay until 11:30. If you guys wish to go to another talk at 11, then that's completely fine, guys. Just join the main room and rename your name with the college you want to join. But the Q&A will be continuing until 11:30 for Northwestern. Yeah.
And I do have a couple questions that came directly to me, Malcolm. Is that okay?
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you.
I have some questions too, but we can address those first.
Okay. So one's but let's have everyone else send them to Malcolm so then he can funnel them through. But how is the mechanical engineering program at Northwestern? So I always think this is a little tricky when somebody asks me exactly about one major. I think our engineering program is kind of what I spoke to earlier about the whole brain engineering, that creative approach, our DTC curriculum, getting you that hands-on experience in the first year. And that's for any of our disciplines of engineering. So I don't think that necessarily differentiates mechanical from industrial or electrical or computer. So there's a lot of different ways that we kind of try to coalesce all of your experiences as an engineer at Northwestern. But I think that this is a very humble way to say it, but if you're asking about one major on our campus, I would encourage you to go a little bit more closely to the curriculum that's pertaining to that major. Check out some of the faculty and the type of research they're doing in that field, and whether that's aligned with some of the things that are interesting to you, because that's kind of the next level to go into a specific major at Northwestern. Otherwise, generally speaking, we're really privileged to hold a top spot in higher education in the US as well as the world. So there's no program that you're going to see at Northwestern that's going to be lacking completely from your expertise or interest and desires. We really try to hone into everything at Northwestern. Could you talk about, there's one more, could you talk about in detail the journalism clubs? Are they only open to journalism majors? Are they local, feature, opinion, investigative? Do they cover, this is great, there's a lot here. Do they cover events beyond the university? Are they an independent body? What is the degree of press freedom in terms of what gets published? All of the above. I would say we have investigative journalism, we have feature, we have opinion, we have our our daily Northwestern, which has won a lot of awards nationally. We also have about 14 clubs. You do not have to be a journalism major to participate in those. Of course, some of those that like rise through the ranks of positions of leadership in some of the clubs, like the big ones, like the Daily Northwestern, tend to be journalism majors. It doesn't mean you have to. Participation and even kind of guest writing is allowed for everyone. You can create your own new publication at Northwestern too. It's incredibly dynamic community and is inclusive of all majors. And that's, again, speaking back to our academic structures too. We are we have a lot of freedom of the press in terms of what gets published because there's so many varieties of the types of publications we have. We have academic journals too that you can be published in. So it's a really big kind of lifeblood of the university, our journalism mentality. So even if you're not coming for journalism, it's a little bit contagious, and you're gonna have friends that are studying in Medill. And again, we're one of the highest achieving programs in the country. So our opportunities for internships too for Medill are pretty unprecedented. You can really handpick what type of organization you want to do your residency in. Journalism residency is what we call it. Okay. Does Northwestern provide a full ride scholarship? Yes and no. We provide it based on need, right? So we provide a scholarship based on how much you need in order to make it possible to attend. So scholarships based on test scores and GPAs, or maybe a skill set, tend to be merit scholarships. We do have a handful of those for talent in the field of music, which is distributed by our Bean School of Music for majors, as well as through athletics and things like that. But the vast majority of our funds are need-based because we don't want to differentiate whether you're qualified for funding based on how high your test score is. That's for admission, right? And that's not even how we do test admission, right? It's about whether you're qualified for Northwestern to come and study here. And then if you're qualified as an admissible student, as an admitted student, we want to make it possible for you to attend. And so that's how we distribute our funding. And that's primarily for US citizens, and then international citizens, it's just at a higher level of competitiveness. And I can talk more to that too. How competitive is Northwestern when it comes to applying to med school? I would say our pre-health advising website is fairly robust. You can go ahead and check that out. And there's a lot of different avenues. You can do pre-med as a track or adjunct major, or not major, I'm sorry, an adjunct program, kind of a selection of courses that you have to be qualified to apply to med school. We have 2 honors programs that you can apply to during your undergraduate studies for Feinberg. Our Feinberg School of Medicine is massive. It's amazing network. It's one of the pivotal ones in the United States, not only regionally here in the Midwest, but nationally. And so it gives our students access because of our Feinberg School of Medicine. It gives undergraduate students access to a lot of really unique opportunities. And we have one of the largest biomedical research labs in the country that was opened a couple of years ago, the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab that our students can work with. The Rehabilitation Institute in Chicago is one of the largest clients for our design thinking communication courses, the first year engineering course. So I can talk more about that we really prepare you well, but we have theater majors going to med school. I'm not joking. We have students that take a year off and do a year at Goldman Sachs and then apply to med school. So it doesn't have to be that you come do biology or something just very typical and go straight to medical school. You can do that, but it's not required. Is it possible to graduate early at Northwestern, 2.5 to 3 years? Depends on how hard you want to push yourself and how limited you might want to be in those secondary concentrations, majors, extracurricularly. So I would say it's not very typical for students to graduate in 2.5 years, but I would say it could be a potential that you can graduate in 3 years or 3.5 because of our quarter system, a lot of students do find themselves adding on a second major or minor to fulfill that fourth year final quarter. But students want to do that because there's so many extracurricular activities and so many professional experiences like internships and research that you can do in place of just straight curriculum that will allow you to extend into that full fourth year. But depending on how early you want to graduate, that is possible. How good are humanities and social science programs at Northwestern? They're amazing. We have so many. I mean, like I said, we're a top 10 institution for a reason. And I say that humbly, not in a way to brag. There's no program that we're really offering you that's going to be subpar. And we've really put a lot of focus into all of our areas. And I would say that for humanities and social sciences, it's all about how you want to kind of adapt that area with other areas and how you want to build your skill sets. And that's when you can like tap into those certificates and figure out what kind of other tangible things you want to put on your resume and which direction you want to take your humanities and social science program, whether it's towards graduate school or whether it's towards a certain profession. So I think that that's pretty impactful for you to take part in. Okay, Malcolm, I'm talking really fast now, but am I okay on time?
Yeah, we're okay. We're just I think we'll just continue the Q&A until 11:30 when you've got to go.
Okay. Are you sure we don't need to do another round of?
No, I've checked with them and they said it's fine.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can stick around for like till like 10:40 if I miss the first 10 minutes. But okay, how important are extracurriculars and demonstrated interest? Extracurriculars are very important, but there's no magic like combination. Like we're not looking for the president of this organization over the president of that, or even the term president, right? We're looking for impact and kind of what impact the organization, the extracurricular activity has made on you as an individual, and like how that forms like what your interests are and what type of student or person you're going to be on our campus. And also, it's not about how many years you've done it. I like to use the example that it could be about how many students you recruited to your organization and you just started it last year. And this is a big project that you launched, right? It could be about how you've done this program since you were 10 years old and you're really dedicated to it. I mean, there's so many different varieties in the applications we receive. No one extracurricular activity is better, and no one like title or tenure is better, right? It's really about me finding out about what you like to do when you're not in the classroom. And more importantly, it's me finding out about the fact that you can be a high caliber academic student and also be doing these other things. That's really what extracurricular activities in the application process is all about. And hopefully you've heard from our presentation that like, that's huge on the Northwestern campus. We want you to be this engaged, active, impactful student outside the classroom. Our students always talk about how collaborative they are rather than just competitive. And I know that can be a phrase that other institutions use, but our students might be competing for the same internship, but really excited to encourage their friend or celebrate their friend that landed that job, right? And so we really want you to be able to articulate that throughout your extracurricular activity, like what kind of student, lab mate, friend, classmate you're going to be on their campus. Demonstrated interest. We want to know that you've done your research and that we appear on your list, whether the top spot in early decision or whether one of those coveted spots on your regular decision list for a reason. So we want to know how that came about, whether it's attending a virtual session like this, you can report that on your application, whether it's coming to campus, which is highly unusual these days, but it's starting to open up. You don't have to do one over the other. We just want to know that like when opportunities presented themselves to you to connect with Northwestern, that you were able to do so and that you were able to do your research to lead towards your application. But it's not about how many times you email or how many times you engage, any of those types of things. So just demonstrated interest is kind of a tricky term in higher ed. Just know that at Northwestern, we just want to know that you're connecting with us and have done your research in some way, shape, or form. Okay.
Okay, next question.
Um,
Have you answered is it possible to graduate early in?
I did do that. And yes, you can apply early or you can graduate early, but again, I would stray away from maybe the 2.5 years unless you really want to power through and do a ton of summer courses and things like that. I would say it's more realistic to graduate a quarter or two early rather than a full year, a year and a half. But it is possible if you're to graduate with just like one major, aside from students that attend to pursue multiple majors or concentrations and internships. But let's give the example of like if you didn't do any internships, any study abroad, any research, and only did one major, then maybe you could you could graduate in 3 years. And if you came in with some IB credit and things like that. Okay.
Okay, next
Malcolm,
one.
am I seeing the next one's business?
Can you elaborate more about the? Yeah. Okay. I'm just making sure we're going in order.
Yeah, go ahead. Please keep me on track. So can I elaborate on business majors and business track? So I would encourage you to go to this website. You can just type it in the search bar for Northwestern called Roads to Business. And that, thank you for bringing my attention to this because I don't know if I mentioned it in this round. So Roads to Business, and it's like many different roads drive you to business as what the premise is. And it will highlight at least 8 to 10 options. Some of them are major, some of them are minors, some of them are certificates. Another one I didn't mention earlier is the Business Institutions Program. It's a certificate and it's incredibly popular as well. So the reasons why you might pick one or the other could be a lot of different reasons, and you don't have to know that as a first-year student. You can kind of come to Northwestern and start to be exposed to these different things, apply in your second year, things like that. Or figure out in your third year that all of a sudden you have a lot of the prerequisites for a certain minor or certificate as well. And so just know that it's pretty organic. What we want you to know about business at Northwestern is we don't have just one business major. There's no business curriculum that's just 30 classes that you can check off to be a business person. We don't see it as that like static, right? Or kind of strict. Business can be a lot of different things. It can be industrial engineering. It can be our integrated marketing communication certificate. It can be a data science program. It can be communication studies. A lot of students that are interested in business go into economics to start. And so that's kind of your one entry point into business if you don't really know what you want to do yet. But check out Roads to Business. It highlights all of them. And there's tons of extracurricular activities and organizations that can also help you. But okay.
Next one, I think is the sorry. Are you getting questions as well in your chat?
No, I'm just reading off of them, but you can pitch them if you want.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Next one is would like to ask about the overall expenses.
Okay. Overall expenses, including tuition and living expenses for international students. It's roughly the same as domestic students. We don't have like in-state, out-of-state, even for domestic students. We do include a slightly increased budget for like travel and room and board because of some of the nuances of like winter break and things like that. So for students that are applying and are going to pay full price, it's going to be roughly around $80,000 a year. But that's not just what you're paying to us. It's what you're paying as part of everything that's going to cost to be a student at Northwestern. So there's direct expenses and then indirect expenses in a financial aid budget. And direct expenses is what you like have to pay to like sit in the seats and get credits and be a student. But then we also want to be transparent about how much it costs to maybe go out to eat with your friends or have certain resources on campus or books and fees. There's a lot of ways you can decrease some of those indirect costs and a lot of ways those can increase, right? So those are the ones that fluctuate but for direct costs, those are the things that you're going to look at like tuition and room and board, but that can even vary. So, but again, we try to meet students where they're at. For US citizens, you're automatically considered for financial aid if you want it, if you're admitted. And for international citizens, it means that you have to tell us if you need it in order to make it possible for you to attend. It's not whether you want financial aid or not. It's that the numbers for your family's financial background is actually going to come out that you need assistance in order to make it possible. So we understand it's a huge investment. So I don't want to underplay that. I want to definitely acknowledge that it's a huge investment. But at a place like Northwestern, you're going to have a lot of return out of that too. The networks you're going to have to connect to, the mentors, the research that you can get funded for, so we can fund you for that research, not based on need, but based on just your desire to do research. Study abroad is incorporated into that too, to make sure that you're covered to do that. A tons of different resources for you as well. So we're a very, very well resourced institution to help make that investment pay off for you. Okay. Do you prefer applicants who have an SAT or ACT score?
Oh yeah, and also I think that there's a similar question as well below.
Okay.
Who's
Yeah.
say they have identical applicants, but one has an SAT and the other one doesn't.
Yes, yes. I get this all the time, and some parents really, really try to push me on this. Do what we prefer? Right now, no, we don't, because there's a whole load of reasons why you would or would not be able to have a test score, and that's not necessarily at your disposal, right? So we don't want students like flying to other cities or countries or taking on a huge financial burden to take an exam if it's just not part of your environment, right? Even if it's part of your environment, but you just didn't get a slot because there's limited slots, or the test is canceled in the Philippines. Like there's so many things that are outside of your control that were truly test optional for that regard, right? There are students that go above and beyond to get an exam, and that's their choice. But what I'm trying to say to you as an applicant is we are test optional and it's optional, right? There's certainly ways you can highlight how you would have hoped to take a test that you couldn't if you want to. We do not want you registering for like AP exams if you're an IB student. That doesn't make sense. You're not taking APs, then don't take the exam. That's just another exam that you're showing that can like check a box. But I need a lot more substance and holistic impression of you as a student in order to admit you. Because I have plenty of students that have the academic marks. And I know that's the hard part to hear in such a blunt way, but there's plenty of students that can do the academic piece, but it's all of the other piece that puts you in my admit pool versus my deny pool, right? And there's plenty of students in my deny pool that I would have loved to put in admit, right? And so just realize that that's the nuance here. And so if I have two students, it doesn't really ever come down to test score. And if you're 10 points higher or 20 points higher or 50 points higher, that's not what the decision is really going to come down to, because that is not the most intriguing, holistic part of your application. It means that you've worked really hard and you've earned that score, and that's reflective of your ability. So I don't want to diminish that, but it's not what it comes down to when it's deciding between an admit or deny. With the GPA, I would say that we're looking for students that are definitely achieving in the highest level of their academic environment. But some of those academic environments are extremely competitive, right? So we know that, students tend to be achieving in the top 10% of their high school environment in terms of our overall applicant pool or admitted pool. But that depends. That can look very different for one student that's in an IB curriculum versus a national curriculum versus a French baccalaureate versus a AP curriculum. So there's so many. We have applicants from something like 9,000 different secondary schools in our last year's class. So just know that it's not streamlined. And a student from the same school, we are going to look at you within your school environment, but you might be taking different courses than your peer that's applying. And you might be performing different levels and different higher levels or standard levels or whatever. And you might also have different academic interests. So it really is never a case where it just comes down to a static number as an admit or deny. So I hope that's helpful. There's a lot of other pieces that come out. Does that suffice, Malcolm? Does that make sense?
Yep. Next question, and this is actually one I'm interested in as well. Are there drastic weather changes? How thick can layers of clothing get?
That's a great one. So we recently had a student reply to this as a student that works in our office, and it was like really beautiful. It was kind of like poetic. I kind of wanted to like publish it on our website. So I'm hoping that they will soon. But just know that I have students coming from all over the globe, and literally over 100 countries, right? And so, yeah, depending on where you're coming from, there's going to be some weather patterns that are going to startle you. But even us coming to, even the Philippines, that can startle us, right? And so you're going to experience 4 seasons. You're going to, at Northwestern, you're going to experience snow. So if that's the main thing, impetus behind this question, you are going to experience that. Layers are our friends, right? Your buildings are going to be nice, warm, and cozy. And then when you go outside, you're going to bundle up. So I always tell students that you get a nice big coat, a nice pair of boots, and it doesn't have to be nice as in price tag, just functional. And we also help students that are on financial aid from different parts of the world kind of gear up for winter as well. Even domestically, that happens. But yeah, I mean, we also have the beauty of 4 seasons. So in the background of this photo that just happens to be up, you'll see fall with all the changing color of the leaves. Campus is like immaculately taken care of though. Our landscapers and like the way we take care of our buildings and our facilities is amazing. So you're never as a student living on our campus going to be like out there shoveling snow like I'm doing at my house, like when I'm doing that. So just, I think that's the funny part of it. And summers are beautiful and warm and hot and humid. But yeah, I mean, that's what you're coming to the US for. It's probably a different environment than what you've been growing up in or living in. And you can love it or leave it. You can stay around. We actually have a lot of students that stay in Chicago after they graduate or go and find a different kind of climate around the United States. But definitely 4 seasons. And when you heard windy, if you've ever heard the term windy city, Northwestern or the city of Chicago is all about, they said that it was the windy city. That's somewhat because of the lakefront, like kind of gusts or winds, but that's not really it. It's not really something you notice that much. Windy City was referring to our politicians back in the day. And have you ever heard the term blowing a lot of hot air, which is like blowing a lot of lies or
I actually didn't know that.
Made up? Yeah, so that's why Chicago is called the Windy City, is because of the politicians that used to kind of like spat back and forth. But so that's another fun fact for today. But keep me on track. Where are we at?
Yeah, next one.
Drastic weather changes. Yeah.
Oh, and you've got about 10 minutes left, or we'll end a bit early as well to give you time to.
Oh no, I have a full 10 minutes. You're good.
Okay. So next one, how competitive are research outputs centered towards humanities and social science programs from Northwestern?
If you're talking about like research opportunities, like ones that you do while you're a student, and correct me if I'm wrong, if that's how I'm interpreting your question, I wouldn't say they're very competitive. I would say they're very accessible. Like you have as I said, our undergraduate research center about 5 years ago now was founded in terms of trying to reach first year and second year students, and not just in those lab and STEM fields. We are really, really focused on giving students the opportunities to pursue their research in whatever field they want. There's a whole robust list that can articulate it a lot better than I can. But I've had students, we also have students that intern at a lot of different facilities in Chicago, whether it's the Chicago Nature Museum, the Field Museum, which is incredibly famous, the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. We have distinct access to all of those. I had a student that did research on how different cultures preserve their deceased or their dead. And she started that by doing an exhibit at the Field Museum on mummies that had been coming from all over the world. And she actually took that into 7 different countries around the globe, researching different cultures and how they kind of commemorate life after death. And so like that's, you would never guess that. I had a student that did one about different dance and music cultures and got to go to like 4 different countries pursuing that, because we have this program called the Circumnavigators Grant. I'm trying to think of some of the other examples off the top of my head. There's so many. I just go to the Undergraduate Research Center's website and you can see a scattering of different topics. And we are highly dedicated to humanities and social sciences just as much as the hard sciences. I think that's also overlapping with some of our performing arts and things like that, how we're dedicated to the wide scope. We also have the Buffett Center, which is a Center for International Studies, Buffett Affairs, or International Global Affairs. And the Buffett Center is founded by Roberta Buffett, which is the Warren Buffett sister, who was founded or who went to Northwestern. So pretty famous name there, and attached a lot of access and funding too.
Okay, guys, we're running out of time, so I'll have to be more selective with the questions now. So because we've only got 8 minutes left. So yeah, next one: does going to or graduating from a prestigious or well-known school in the Philippines give an advantage?
Oh, gosh, that's tough. We have like 9,000 different secondary schools in our applicant pool, right? And so I think that recently, especially with 100 different countries represented in our student body, and just where we're at Northwestern, is we want to see diversity in all senses of the term. So types of secondary schools you went to, cities that are represented, not just in the major cities of the countries that we're going to, but other areas. So we are really trying to be attuned and connected with applicants from all different backgrounds. And so we do not want to limit that to a specific secondary school. Of course, there's secondary schools that have had relationships or have been sending students to us for years, but we definitely want to learn about new secondary schools and secondary schools that are from highlighting a different background, or that it just shows that you've done your research if you're applying from one of those. And there's also Education USA that you can utilize. Obviously, CAMP has been amazing for you, and hopefully it gives access to students from not just one type of secondary school. But no, we're not looking for just one prestigious or well-known school. But if you are applying from a school that hasn't traditionally sent students to the United States or to Northwestern, don't be afraid to just connect with us and help us understand or connect with your secondary school teachers or administrators, or just let us understand how you found us and what more we can find out about your environment. And we're happy to do that. Okay. Dual degrees, computer science and physics. Yes, you can do dual degrees. Dual degrees tends to refer to something different. You can do a double major. We also have dual degrees that are bachelor's and master's degrees. So you can do a 5th year to add on a master's degree in our McCormick School of Engineering. Computer science is housed within our Weinberg College of Arts and Science and our McCormick School of Engineering. So you can pick either one and complete that. And then business, again, can look like a lot of different things at Northwestern. So you can check out the Roads to Business site, as we said before, in case you just joined.
Next one, how big is campus?
Do I have to run a marathon to go from one class to another? Can I bike, skateboard? I like this question. Because I actually ran the Chicago Marathon 3 times, and I used Lake Michigan to train on, but I had to run all the way from Northwestern all the way to the south end of the city. So no, it's pretty small. It's about 1.5 kilometers north south, and a 0.5 kilometer east to west. You guys are in kilometers, right, Malcolm?
Yeah.
Okay, as much of the world is, not miles. And so I would say you can really get anywhere on campus in maybe 20 minutes. And if you're at a leisurely pace, you can bike. People bike and skateboard or scoot. There's actually bikes you can rent. There's also scooters that you can rent now in the city of Chicago and Evanston. So it's really accessible, but you don't need it. You won't be competing with any cars. So there's no cars that go through campus, but it's really quite walkable. It's big enough to have all kinds of nooks and areas to explore, and some really impressive fancy buildings, but it's not overwhelming. You don't necessarily ever have to take a bus to get to another building unless you just want to make it faster. We do have buses too, and that helps in the winter when it's cold out. Other questions? Oh, and the lakefront path is just beautiful. So when I talked about running the marathon, I really talked about how Lake Michigan was my training partner for the marathon. It's just so beautiful. So it is an environment that lots of people like to kind of use that lakefront to get around, but also just to kind of to exercise and things like that. And we have a beach on the north end and a beach on the south end. And a beach in the Midwest is quite unique because it's a lakefront beach, not an ocean beach. But the north one is private and the south one is public. So there's some people that come and go on that one too. What does Northwestern look for in students? Oh my goodness. I feel like I could give my entire 30-minute spiel just to answer that question. But how I summed it up before is we're looking for a student that did their research on Northwestern and can really articulate it, but that can be a lot of different ways. It can be an engineer that's looking for that innovation and hands-on design focused program, or it can be a theater major that just loves what we have to offer in Chicago and theater. It can be a math student that is focused on our MMSS program, which is our mathematical methods of social sciences. I like to say it's kind of like Freakonomics meets math. Really figure out what stands out to you about Northwestern when you're applying and articulate that in your Why Northwestern statement. And just we're looking for that spark just as much as you're looking for that spark in a university that you're choosing, right? And I just picked like 3 random areas to talk about, so don't limit it to that. But again, students that are academically kind of agile or curious, once you're admitted to Northwestern, you're able to study in any of the 6 colleges and schools. So we want students that think that's kind of interesting, that aren't like, oh my gosh, I might have to take a class over here in this area that's not mine. We want you to be inspired by like how that could like show you a different lens into the area you are thinking about. Because again, about 80% of our students are studying multiple concentrations. And so that's a major or minor certificate. We want students that are engaged in kind of that lens of the international city like Chicago, but a college town that has a lot of pride and excitement, those athletics and the musicians and the performances, all different things that come to life at Northwestern. We have 100 different countries represented, about 11% international citizens, another 3 to 5% US citizens studying abroad, students from all 50 states, every socioeconomic background, just all that type of stuff. So students that are inspired and excited about getting to know each other just as much as their faculty in their area of discipline.
Okay, I think this will have to be the final 2 questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just these 2. So the first one, they're a bit related, but I think I'll leave it up to you whether you want to answer them together or separately.
Okay.
How does Illinois culture?
Well, Illinois is very interesting. I mean, it's a big state. So I would more sum it up as Chicago culture. Chicago is a little bit more of our nature at Northwestern. Chicago, we're a little bit more kind of liberal, kind of human focused in Chicago, and it's incredibly urban. We have 80 different neighborhoods that make up Chicago. A lot of them have cultural identities. So I would say that that's represented in our student culture and part of what maybe drives students to our campus. Again, I just spoke a little bit about our student culture on our campus. We have students that are able to discuss like conflicting ideas, but with respect, right, for one another. And I think that is part of the diversity of thought and expression and identity at Northwestern. Our campus events are ranging from everything. Our traditions, you can look some of them up. The Primal Scream is one that's kind of fun. Everybody screams their lungs out the night before finals in their first quarter. Sounds kind of creepy, but it's just a release. It shows like a release of energy. We have Dillo Day. We have which is a music festival. There's a lot. We have our own World Cup for soccer fanatics or football fanatics, popular campus traditions. There's a lot more. Let's see. Hold on, I just lost my place. Quirky Vibes. We definitely have the startup vibe, entrepreneurship. A lot of people talk about how we're like a pre-professional school, but I don't think that's a bad thing at all. It means that our students are like really driven and excited. And again, they're cheering each other on to get those top internships. They're not competing. We're huge in recruitment of internships for first and second year students, not just upperclassmen. People know Northwestern, they come and seek out our students, not just for Chicago, but for nationwide. We have centers in San Francisco and in DC, lots of connections in New York as well. But we have a physical campus in San Francisco and and DC to tap you into. Yeah, the artsy vibe is huge. I mean, looking at all of our performance arts, over 90 theater productions each year, tons of music at all different calibers. So like high level opera to hip hop to really everything, like ensembles and performance that's more casual. Yeah, I would say all of those vibes are at Northwestern. I'm not exaggerating at all. We have a lot of like the STEM, sciencey. I talked about earlier, like there's a t-shirt in our bookstore that says Nerd Western, because our students are incredibly smart but don't take ourselves too seriously. Also, we have a really big improv population. So not just theater majors, but like really quirky. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with some of the celebrities in the US, like Stephen Colbert and Seth Meyers and Saturday Night Live. We have tons of Saturday Night Live, like people that are Northwestern alum. So like that quirky, really witty humor exists at Northwestern quite robustly. Malcolm, I think that's almost everything. I hope I didn't cut short the third session there or whatever.
No, it's completely fine. Yeah, guys. So we can't answer any more questions, unfortunately. We'll have to stop here. But thank you again, everyone, for joining the session. And Christy, you have anything you wanna plug or you wanna say?
Just that, I mean, we're excited to welcome Malcolm to campus. So I hope I don't put too much pressure on him, but connect with him to see if everything I said is true. Or he can tell you for real. We also have current students that want to connect with you. We have global Wildcats. We have our senior counselors in our office are amazing. They're final year students that are actually just working to talk to you. And so I just hope that you understand that we're approachable as admissions staff members and officers. We want you to be excited about your college search. We know how hard it is this year too. Like it's been incredibly challenging, not just this year, but last year. So just thanks for all the work that you're doing. And again, campus, it's an amazing resource that really doesn't exist very many places around the globe. I can say that honestly. And so just be excited about what you're doing right now, the research that you're doing and how you're supporting each other. And I hope you're excited about the admission process, not just scared of it. I hope that's what we achieved today. But thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Yeah,
Malcolm, you can connect people with me or Mickey if you have questions. I'm sorry, I do have to sign off a half hour earlier than I planned because we have a staff meeting that I'm running that I'm going to join in on now. But Mickey, thank you.
Thank you so much, Christy. I'll hope to see you again next year.
Absolutely. And again, let us know if you have questions. Send them along.
Yeah, thank you so much, Malcolm, too. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And you guys can go back to the main meeting room if you still want to go to Berkeley. But if not, you can leave the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Christy. Let's say our thank yous to Christy.
Thank you. Oh, look at all the hearts. That's nice. Have a good day.
Have a great
day. I can't wait to make it to the Philippines. Like I said, I've been to 45 countries on behalf of Northwestern, but not yet to the Philippines. So it's mine.
Yeah, you're in person.
Yes, absolutely. Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Malcolm.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Let me know.